Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Namaskar. This is Engineer Suraj Singh speaking from Bharat, India. On this day, January 15, 2022, Saturday, this is 4 o'clock in the morning. मैं सूरज सिंह भारत इंडिया से बोल रहा हूँ. आज दिनांक 15 जनवरी 2022 शनिवार सुबह के 4 बजे हैं. Enjoy sleeping, enjoy sweet dreams. Title of talk is quality, concrete specifications, civil field engineering, engineers and life, contracts, construction, designs, communication, coordination as usual. Nothing new, but continuation never stops. Life has to continue. That's very important. And this certification as usual I show. Purpose is to show my email ID that is known to you now. I repeat, Suraj_engineer, SURAJ, Suraj underscore ENGINEER at yahoo.co.uk, and you know that my titles are here: Chartered Engineer India and International Professional Engineer India. International Professional Engineer is only for 5 years validity, and Chartered Engineer is valid until one becomes or one remains corporate member of Association of Engineers India. And my branch of engineering is civil engineering by virtue of my academical performance. But in field, I have done many activities which overlap civil engineering, and that's why I assume and I designate myself by experience coordination engineer rather than civil engineer. Coordination, communication, which includes civil engineering along with overlapping of mechanical, electrical and other tasks of engineering in contracts, etc., whatever comes into fall into domain of civil engineering. And this is my, you can say, proficiency certificate, that is authorization as International Professional Engineer India, INTPE bracket India. International Professional Engineer India is full designation, descriptive designation, whereas INTP India is written on cards or elsewhere. And this is issued, declared under provisions of International Professional Engineers Agreement, that is a world association or a body of various countries. And this validity of certificate is 5 years. Now goes to another one. This Chartered Engineer India, as you know very well, I told you many times. Then it's fellowship, membership or association, whatever it is. There are three classes of this certificate. And here is quality file. I will stress on. And here is, concrete terminology according to ACI, which I have been going through, and various, you can say, here you can see this browsing list, and you can see where we do stand. We have to discuss about this. Before this, I close this certificate, and I also close this certificate so that only few files remain on desktop or laptop. My intention is quality in our country or in general all over. Engineers who are responsible, who are considered responsible quality, they must be responsible. Fact remains different. It's up to them what level of responsibility they can assume. It's not a question of assumption, it's a question of requirement. If you work in engineering, it's your duty, to prove, it's your duty to produce quality activities, quality tasks, quality product, material, product, process, technology, or whatever you deal with. We must have certain fixed alignment with work. We cannot just work at, you can say, random, or we can say all time we hit and try. We must have perfect, reliable, standard policy for every work. Just like we have standards for materials, national and international standards. We have standards for formula, what formula you have to use, what procedure we have to adopt. all we have to some extent in theory. But my part goes little beyond that. What I have learned in engineering, or you can say an example to life, theory stops at one point. Theory cannot be exclusively studied forever. That is one point, and that everybody has to understand. Why I am saying this? If you want to study theory, there is no end. You can study 15 engineering branches. Everybody has capacity. One can engineering any number of or whatever number of degrees, PhDs, MEs, or whatever interest you have. But then life goes on being spent in academics only. And purpose of life is not academics alone. Purpose of life is work application, as it's clearly understood that only knowledge from books is not sufficient, is not enough. Because books are also written by someone, whether for derived formula or for empirical formula, whether for proven experience or you can say only experience. Life is something that depends on realities. We cannot imagine what should be life. We can only imagine what is required and what should be done. God has made many systems. We cannot deny this fact. We have no proof of physics of God, but we have proof of impact of God, impact by God. Just like we cannot prove physically electricity or electric current, is seen, it's not seen, but its effect is measurable. Its effects impact, we know. I'm not here to discuss about what is God or what is about God, but because we involve materials delivered by nature, there is no engineering science available, and otherwise there is no science available which can exclude directly or indirectly contribution given by God. Even in drop of water, there is no exclusively human contribution, not at all. If somebody says I can produce water, that person would demand, give me hydrogen and oxygen, I would produce. Human cannot produce anything without support of God. And that is a fact. I may call it God or I may call it nature. It's one and same. When we have to depend on God, then we have to think differently. We cannot claim anything that we have done it. If we claim, then we are on wrong formula track. We have to depend on nature. That is a fact. And fact says that engineering is no fiction, just like science is no fiction. Nothing in engineering and in science happens on hypothetical arrangements or speculations. Everything is seen and proven or is proved automatically. Engineering world depends on facts. Of course, there are assumptions, presumptions during working of formula, during derivation of formula, because something is related to something else. There is nothing basic. Even when we take units, we take in relation to some standard unit. That is a fact. If we do not realize facts in life, engineering cannot exist. Engineering means facts. Engineering means intellectualism. Engineering means life starter. Engineering means life runner. And engineering means, you can say, there is no walk in life. There is no walk of life where engineering is not used or employed. It is very important part, and that's why I say if engineering quality is improved or is maintained, life is maintained. Life is not that we have mechanized it. It doesn't mean anything. Mechanization is very small we have done. Our body itself is well mechanized. Do you think about that? Means whatever we have, it's always the nature of human being. It's a part of nature. That whatever do we have, we never worry about that. Because we think it's mine, where shall it go? But we have to think. I always consider nature as my first professor because nature made me. Nature is such automatism that there can be no other automatism in this world. We have to realize this fact. Body, human body, and whatever else body of other creatures clearly proves that it is automatism which we do not know how it works. I'm just giving an example only, not to say that it's a part of quality. It's very much part of quality. For example, automatic manufacturing or automatic construction of body, live body within a body. A body is manufactured or a body is processed within a living body, and from that living body another living body is delivered. What does it mean? This means it is hidden factory, it is hidden chemical plant where every activity is done which we have not understood. We have generated many plants, many refineries all over the world. We have done so much work on facilities, but that is wide. You can see area of every plant is kilometers by kilometers, but here area is very small. Even you can't even think of. But process is very wide. This product is manufactured in a couple of months. And this product lives for decades and automatically works for expansion, for further build up, further strengthening, and keeps on changing all time. And then from very small size to full size, and then very soft state to healthy state and to terminal state. What does it teach? It teaches that there is material, there is system, there is strength building, there is complete functioning, and then there is complete termination or expiry. Once it is expired, it doesn't mean anything except to be disposed for purpose of decomposition, so that it again becomes part of natural cycle or natural soil. Is that not enough to learn? And it's not simple this body, it's whole universal system. You may call solar system, or you may call universe system, or a part of universe. Every work has been designed perfectly. We cannot say not. Nature teaches us system is a requirement, of course. Process is a requirement, of course. Regularity is a requirement, punctuality is a requirement, or you can say perpetual action is a requirement. It should not vary from design. We cannot see who engineer works there, which scientist works there. We do not know. Maybe someone in other form, we do not know. But system works. Here what happens in our world, we do everything, we show everything, we prove everything, we will do this, we have been doing this, but result doesn't prove that. You got my point? We claim every act. We have done best design, we have got best material, we have got best technology, we have got best and best and best. We never say it's worst. Even though it's not reliable, we claim for purpose of sale it is best. For purpose of promotion it is best. Because we measure performance in terms of money in finances. But our lives are not measured in terms of money or finances. That is major difference. Human has built a scale of finance or money value to measure or to evaluate something. We only believe in money. We don't believe in anything else. And that is, I can say, one part of weakness. I cannot say you just stop measuring money, measuring in terms of money. You do that. But that should be one point criteria. For example, if I say what is quality of life, how do you measure your standard of living or your status, you can say. Status question comes in. What is the status of this person, of this family? That is a big question. One would say, oh, this person is a billionaire. He has a status. Oh, this person is having nothing. This person is nothing at all. This person has got no money power. So this person has no status. I think this is common understanding these days in this era, that every power is measured, every status of a person is measured in terms of economical value or financial value. Other points are missed. Yes, other points are considered but in secondary way. Oh, what's honesty? This person is honest or dishonest. This person is honest or sincere. This person is helping others. Or this person has very good knowledge. This person has very good academical background. Likewise, we do not care about that. We sometimes help those who are criminals to come into our government. I'm just giving an example only, don't think that's different. In every country nowadays, you will find very few countries all over the world who are led by sincere politicians. Same way in our country, Bharat, India, you will find 45% member of parliaments who are having bad records. What does it mean then? Are we sleeping? Or world people are sleeping? If we are sleeping, why we are sleeping? Questions are there. This means we do not bother about quality. We do not bother about anything. You can say it is same thing as democracy. In democracy, people don't worry about what person is. They just are required to vote for someone bad or good. Same way, I think we have converted engineering a democracy. Means no consideration for any quality. This is really very bad state of engineering. When engineering says I am mind oriented. We talk to engineering as a person, engineering as an entity. You can ask question, hey Mr. Engineering or Mrs. Engineering, what are you? It would simply say, I am intellectual. I am mind operative. I am nothing else. I can do whatever my mind says. It never says I can do whatever money says. Every education is same. Every education. Where application of mind is promoted. If we can't use our mind, but we have many degrees, in that case I don't think that degrees got any value. And engineering is one of that world where without real application of known ideas, we cannot say anything. If I say I can design a building, all right, you design it. You are given this project. Then I have to design really. And design is what? It's not a piece of art. It's not a piece of picture. It should be certain document that tells others what is required to be done. And that should be in explicitly clear way. It cannot be ambiguous, and that's what drawings are made for. As a language, as part of language, every drawing instructs what you have to do. This means that person who drew these, who produced these drawings, has written in a language, you have to do this. And if that is not clearly written, or there exists certain kind of ambiguity in that, then you can say either work cannot be done, or if it is done, it shall be done not according to author's requirement, or what was mind in authors in that time, or a designer in that time when it designed. That's what I say. Quality of working, quality of thinking, quality of designing, quality of construction, quality in sales, quality in you can say dealings, quality in project. Various sequences can be generated about quality, but ultimate target is whatever is done, whatever task is done, that should be carried out or conducted in a professional manner. And what is that professional manner? That professional manner is quantity and quality must move together. Quantity or quantity and quality must move together. Why is it double? Because we have to confirm quantity is never constant and quality is also never constant. There exist always variations and changes. Important point is that. So why question always start with material being concrete or should not be concrete. My idea should be concrete or diluted. That is what I have to think and everyone has to think. Because these materials for human considerations are permanently used. We cannot say these are used only for a week and then we have to draw out like we say event of marriage is celebrated. It's organized by someone who says for 1 day or 2 days I have done this and then we have to take it down. But in engineering permanent works this doesn't happen. Even in temporary works this doesn't happen, and also in little longer period than temporary work it doesn't even happen as such. We have to think a lot before deciding something, before deciding material issue, before deciding you can say equipment issue, before deciding what plan we have to do for this, what method we have to adopt for this, and that should be done keeping in view many points, many actions to be in mind. All that must be kept abreast and then we can decide something excellent, or you can say most reliable, outstanding it may be. And in that case we can say it's not one person who is responsible for that, except lead responsibility. It is a required contribution from every other person, whoever is involved on that product. What others have to do, that is well defined, there's no problem. Everybody has got responsibility and that should be realized one. It should not be a fake responsibility or just responsibility for name's sake. Role of everyone is to be defined, that is very important. And role doesn't mean just writing, it means clear understanding. Role of product is a result of role by everybody. Everyone, whoever is involved on certain work, certain project, result of that production is because of contribution of everyone. If contribution by one person is missed, in that case you can say you cannot either realize that product or there will be defect on product. That's what I have to say. Everybody has a responsibility, everybody has a sequence of responsibility, and that should be done one by one in a proper way. And that's called role of everybody. You can say role of owner who owns this project, who has to digest all liabilities. Then role of an engineer who designs it and supervises it. Then role of a contractor who just takes either EPC contract or can say construction contract or supply contract, whatever, that has a role. Then also every employee or every personnel on behalf of whatever parties, as I said, owner, engineer, contractor, third party, or else, all those involved personnel have respective responsibilities. To an extent, work is related, and that's where we have to move. In fact, you can say detailed runnings, details running is requirement. Everybody has certain responsibility, liability, accountability, all those must be properly affected. Top responsibility comes to owner, and because owner is financial related, okay, fine, but technical responsibility comes to that engineer or designer or supervisor or whatever it, that its decisions are always very significant, which cannot be done just closed in closed room. Experience input must be pulled in, must be imported, and if one has experience, I think it's a kind of asset, not physical asset, but mind asset, and that asset should be shared by someone. That is important because if you have something in mind, that should continue its work, because mind is not owned by you, it's a support by God. Because if God doesn't support us, if nature system doesn't support us, we cannot continue. It's therefore very, very important. And that's what I say, role of engineer is very important. Here, leader is engineer in this world, technical world. I'm talking of certain professional world, where maybe engineer is not given money at all at that level, but role is well defined. It has to be defined in every task, it has to be defined on every project, and this role is also defined in general and in specifics. In general, everybody knows, but when you come to specifics, particular, it's very important. First of all, engineering is a detailed world. It's not just comprehensive world. You take 2 or 3 pages and see what is engineering. Every project, every work is different, and you have to think on whatever you want to do. Maybe you know it before, but again, because every work is different, details are different, these are not repetitive in general, we have to find different ways sometimes, and very many subdisciplines work together. It's not simply civil, you can say civil subject. Even in designs, when you say, which is misunderstood, that design has many aspects. In fact, it also requires part input from many other activities which come within the scope of or ambit of mechanical engineering, for example, electrical engineering, for example, security engineering, and likewise there are so many other activities or tasks which have to be clubbed together in form of a saying. You can say clubbing many activities, many works together, it is called a kind of, you can say, way to coordinate. Coordination, you know meaning of coordination, I need not explain that, but for those who do not really understand that, they abuse coordination. They think liaison is coordination. No. What I am saying is technical nature of a work. Details whatever we have and details whatever we don't have. Those details that we don't have, we have to have them. By whatever way, if you don't have them, you cannot do that work. That's also true. Therefore, when I say coordination engineers are rare. You can see, you'll find millions engineers these days, but they are not coordinators. That's one weakness we have, because coordination cannot be taught. Coordination can be, directed, or you can say it acts as to be a guide. But those who have opportunities also in senior positions to work on many engineering activities because of nature of project, those people too are very rare on such multitude levels of projects. And because of sometimes failing coordination, or you can say just coordination without detailed thinking, it doesn't mean anything. I can't say that a new boy or new student, one gets degree in engineering or diploma in engineering, I can't expect that candidate to be a coordinator, because coordinator does not come because of earning certain degree. There can be no degree in coordination. Yes, methods can be explained. We can say you have to consider all these at one time, but not only experience would teach. Experience in reality, I'm not saying just time pass. If you have opportunity to work and you have projects like buildings, for example, not just roads, you have certain projects that are technically oriented. It's very important. Building is very technically oriented. Similarly, plants facilities are very technically oriented. If you have got certain opportunities in beginning itself, I think you shall become lucky person. I don't care for higher education or further higher education, because education can be achieved any time in life, every time in life, all time in life. But experience cannot be achieved all time. And because experience is based on facts, it's not based on, you can say, just extrapolation or imagination. It is based on fact, and fact is that we have to include in our projects permanent materials, or whatever materials forever, and that serves forever. Therefore, you can say reality in engineering is different. Therefore, I say roles should be perfect. It should be reliable. It should not just means entertaining. And we have to take responsibility. Nobody else would take responsibility, because we are qualified for that. We have competency levels. So engineers are not simply educated engineers. They should be organized, and they should organize. They should be systematic, and they should do systems. They should devise systems. They should run on systems, and they should make others run on system. They should investigate, they should scrutinize all time what is right for this or what is not right for this activity. And that's what I say, civil engineers and other engineers along with civil engineers, depending on nature of project, who should lead whom, this is first requirement. And who should whom, this is not just by designation itself, it is by reality, it is by real experience. Sometimes, some people can't express themselves, and some people are there who can express themselves. But think of this, is absence of expression is right? Expression doesn't mean by speech only. Expression means by writing also, and writing is more important. And what is our duty in that case? What is our role as an engineer? And our role should be clearly written. I'm not saying you write books, no. It should be, you can say, clearly, in a summarized way, or even in explanatory way, elaborate way you do it, no problem. If it is good communication, and it should also act as knowledge provider to all those candidates who are new, because they have to require certain references, and I think these references can help do better quality work, because I know it's difficult to go through all documents. Nobody likes them once you are in field, And there could be many reasons for that, which you all know, that you don't have time, or you are so busy, or you cannot concentrate on arguments. But you have to arrange that. You can't leave information hidden on drawings or in the specifications to go on working. You can't do that. And if you do that, your work shall not be accepted. So we have to decide about this. It's very important point I'm talking. It's not simply you can say quality issue. It's an issue of system. And we cannot reach quality levels until we do understand what is required. What is our role? What is our system? Is our system forcing me to get this role? Or somebody else has to wait for my decisions? I do not want that. Engineer is intelligent. It's not a question of definition. It's a question of work, because engineering, and particularly I would say civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, are very fundamental engineering, very fundamentals of engineering. And without this, I can say there's no way that you can deliver some structure or some building, because all these engineerings are involved. Of course, these are very coordinated, very, you can say, chained engineerings, and others, whoever they are, also join with them. I always start to take responsibility, to pass responsibility, to pass care of projects only to civil engineers. Not because civil engineer is everything, but because civil engineering is original location. That original location means it starts with from scratch piece of land, and that's where point lies in. We have to think of a lot. Civil engineering is not just shuttering or steel fixing and pouring concrete. That is nothing. Civil engineering is something different. My one of professors used to say, if you have common sense, you can do 50% engineering without any problem, and remaining 50% engineering with, of course, supports of formula and theory as well as practical aspect. But 50% common sense. This means if you are a civil engineer, you must have at least 50% your energy to be spent on common sense. And common sense is also very general. Sense of activity, sense of work, sense of understanding, sense of personality, sense of everything. It's like quality of everything. So job description, as I said, first you have to decide your own job. Why should somebody design for you? So I said in this point here, engineers have to decide, to determine. We have to first decide that we have to determine forever that quality cannot be taken for granted. We cannot leave behind quality and go ahead, or you can say we cannot lag in quality. Lag behind, and then something is behind. How can we bring forward? Engineers have to decide, to determine forever that quality cannot be abused or taken for granted. It has to work per engineering demands and requirements. You can say essentially, or first essential is that civil engineers must care about professional requirements, professional activities, and relating to projects where major structures are included permanently, which could constitute in frames of RCC components, frames of structural steel components, or you can say precasting components, and all other considerable elements that add to structures. For example, remedial actions we have to take modifications we have to do. And we can say then if structure is taken, if structure is taken quality care, if structure is taken quality care of, all other components or items are secondary in considerations but can be taken care of if structure has reliability. And if services are also included with the structure, which is also significant point of view. Services means services which are which move building. In fact, services provide facilities to building, and that services actually operates and then building operates. If services are also included with structures, additional care must be resorted to for engineering coordination. Again, I stress, because coordination work is a specialized job on such structures, and this knowledge can only be achieved by experience, by intellectual experience. Means you are not to just work better, you have to prove that your work is all good. Coordination works in a specialized job in such structures, and true is that it's also true, it's like an additional expertise that every engineer does not possess, and it's not possible for everyone to possess it. And there's no academic branch or subject that teaches us about coordination. And you can simply say, if you are an active engineer, you are active in field, that experience of field shall teach you. Maybe at that time you are not clear something being taught to you, but it is a fact. It's a fact that coordination can be learned only by experience and by involving oneself in multidiscipline works without having any second thought. One should not decide self only that it's not my job. If one is an engineer, it's very much job of engineer. Just keep in mind that one. Without communication, you cannot do anything. Without communication, we cannot do any coordination. It doesn't matter you have to speak your own volume. No, it's not that. You have to think on that. We have to associate ourselves with nature to some extent for positive working of those who want to work. Not just might is right, but right is right, I should say. Right is right, wrong is never right. It is therefore emphasized that coordination must be adopted as an essential. As an essential, if quality is required to be affected. For it affects structures, arrangements from every viewpoint. And it's also true that many changes are affected to structure during construction or during production of working designs. Very important point. I think we should not be non-serious on this, and then we can say we have gone through many points on this file, and this file I think is maybe not very new, but it tells us something that's very important. Expensive file in a way. We work on this, and various terminologies are available. Alphabetically we are studying that. I was on page this one, I think, last time when we left, where you can say magnetite was defined, manual batcher, manufactured sand, map cracking, marble, definition of marble, what's masonry, cement, and also it cited to go through masonry grout, masonry lift, you can say mass concrete, mass and mass concrete, and also mass you can say density, mat. So mat, we come mat foundation also there is. Then it is material, loose material. Okay, we just go from mass concrete, mass masonry, unit grout. So we can say we continue from here. It doesn't harm anything, but give something. You can say it's an important point. Sometimes we have to give some overlap on our studies because that is required. Here we have done that, but I am just for purpose of maturity factor. Even I remember we did that. Maximum size of aggregate also we, I think, means is test. So no problem, just talk for 2-3 minutes. So we can say what is mass concrete. Mass concrete is volume of structural concrete in which a combination of dimensions of member being cast in, you can say member being cast, of boundary conditions, you can say you have to take into consideration characteristics of concrete mixture. We have to think of what is that, and ambient conditions can lead to undesirable thermal stresses. A combination of these factors, as said, volume of structural concrete, which combination of dimensions, that's one factor is dimension, other factor is boundary condition, fourth factor is what type of character, concrete mix it is. 3 points are there. One is dimensions, boundary, quality of concrete or character of concrete, and conditions, environment conditions, ambient conditions, temperature, relative humidity, or whatever else. All this can lead to undesirable thermal stresses. Undesirable thermal stresses, you have to keep in mind what I'm talking is thermal stresses, thermal cracking, or you can say thermal to electrochemical reactions, or reduction in long-term strength as a result of elevated concrete temperature due to heat from hydration. And also we have to keep in mind hysteresis of material, loss of working property of some material in concrete. So it is just called a kind of mass concrete in which mass is taken into consideration. Mass, and it's not 1 or 2 cubic meter quantity, it's a big one. So we can say that's what we say mass concrete. And then mat, if we take into consideration what's mat, it's also we can say mat or kind of mat, what's mat. It can be called an assembly of reinforcement or steel reinforcement composed of certain layers or number of layers, 2 or 3 or more, of bars placed at angles to each other, certain angles to each other, and secured together. We can say then definition of mat. It's an assembly of steel reinforcement composed of 2 or more layers of bars placed at certain angles to each other and secured together either by welding or tying. It may be a thin layer of randomly oriented chopped filament, short fibers without a carrier fabric, or long random filaments loosely held together with binder and used as reinforcement for fiber reinforced polymer composite material. And we then have mat foundation, a foundation consisting of continuous concrete slab in both directions, x and y axis, that's usually reinforced and supports an array of columns, walls, or both. Then we have matrix, cement paste in which fine aggregate particles in mortar are embedded. So this is cement paste in which fine aggregate particles of mortar are embedded is one part of matrix. Then you can say mortar in which coarse aggregate particles in concrete are embedded. So we had mortar, that is cement paste, and in that you embed coarse particles, and of course that is matrix. And also another one is resin or binder. Resin or binders that hold fibers in fiber reinforced polymer. Polymer is fiber reinforced polymer. Together transfer load to fibers and protect them against environmental attack and damage due to handling. Maturity factor we have to define, that is maturity factor is also, maturity means what? And because the factor, that's a function of age of concrete. What's the age of concrete? A factor that's a function of age of concrete. It may be in hours or days multiplied by difference between mean temperature of concrete, that is in degrees, and also during curing, and that datum temperature below which hydration stops. So it is a formula, working formula to know what is maturity. So we have to take into our consideration age of concrete and differences between mean temperatures of concrete during curing and datum temperature below which hydration stops. Maximum size of aggregate we can specify it, and in specifications and in description of aggregate, the smallest sieve opening through which entire amount of aggregate is required to pass, that is what we can say maximum size of aggregate through which that sieve opening through which entire amount of aggregate is required to pass is maximum size of aggregate. And we have to see mean stress, average of maximum and minimum stress. Maximum and minimum stress in one cycle of fluctuating loading. Mechanical anchorage, we have gone through this along with, so we can say whatever device that's mechanical and is capable of developing specified yield strength of reinforcement without damage to concrete. And also mechanical bond, you interlock, interlock works are created when fresh cement material, fresh cementous mixture is placed and hardens to conform to site texture of existing solid material. We can say mechanical bond, interlocks can be created when texture of mixture, when interlock created when fresh cementous mixture is placed and hardens to conform to surface texture of existing solid material. Then mechanical connections we're talking of couplers, we're talking of here couple sleeves and end bearing. So completely we can say complete assembly of end bearing sleeve, a coupler or a coupling sleeve, and possibly additional intervening material or other component to affect connection of reinforcing bars. And that can be, you can say, bar end check, coupler, coupling device, and end bearing sleeves. Mechanical lap slice, also overlap, you can say, complete assembly of a coupling sleeve device, and then and whatever additional components configured to accomplish positive splicing of overlapping reinforcing bars, and we have to see megascopic and malite. We discussed yesterday about malite. What is malite? A mineral group. It is a mineral group of minerals ranging from calcium, magnesium silicate, or you can say alkermanite, to calcium aluminate silicate, galenite. So it is calcium magnesium silicate, that's acernite, ackermanite, to calcium aluminum silicate, galenite. That occurs as crystals in blast furnace slag. Melt is another one, where molten portion of raw material mass during burning of cement, clinker, firing of lightweight aggregate, or expanding of blast furnace slag. We talk of membrane curing, a process that involves application of liquid membrane, forming compound or covering with a protective sheet material. Both function as barrier to restrict evaporation of mixing water from concrete surface. Means purpose of this membrane curing is not to allow any evaporation of mixing water from concrete surface. If that situation can be arrived by just providing chemical compounds, I think it's better one. But even then, we should not avoid mass, I would say. Membrane theory of design from thin shells. Membrane theory is theory for design from thin cells. Thin shells based on premise that shell cannot resist bending because it deflects only the stress that exists. Therefore, in any other section, a shear stress and direct compression or tension. Marvinite, one of principal crystalline phases, one of principal crystalline phases. So it's one of principal crystalline you can say phases found in blast furnace slags as galenite and malite. Mesh reinforcement, WWF we call it sometimes, welded wire fabric, welded wire reinforcement, is woven wire reinforcement also, and mesh roller. You can say finishing tool consisting of rolling drum. Finishing tool consists of rolling drum attached to handle, of which surface of that drum is made of mesh, sometimes used for rolling over surface of fresh concrete to embed concrete aggregate. A finishing tool consisting of rolling drum attached to handle, of which surface of drum is made of mesh, sometimes used for rolling over surface of fresh concrete to embed coarse aggregate. Mesh nature hinge, a permanent semi semi articulation or flexible joint. A permanent semi articulation or flexible joint. A permanent semi articulation or flexible joint in a reinforced concrete arch wherein angle of rotation of hinge are very small. by crossing steel reinforcing bars, by crossing steel reinforcing bars with an opening between concrete structural segments, resultant articulation presents very small resistance to rotation. Resultant articulation presents very small resistance to rotation, resist either axial thrust or shearing force, and is permanently flexible. Center of rotation occurs at intersection of reinforcing bars. Let us repeat this to understand. It is Messner hinge, which says permanent semi-articulation or flexible joint. Let me put off battery, just a minute please. Alright, so Messner hinge. Oh my god, 4 degrees, 3 degrees it is, I'm sitting in 3 degrees and it's really early morning, 3 degrees, what happens. Just Messner hinge, permanent semi articulation or flexible joint. Permanent semi-articulation flexible joint you consider in RCC, an RCC arch, wherein angle of rotation of hinge are very small by crossing steel reinforcing bars. By crossing steel reinforcing bars within opening between concrete structural segments. Resultant articulation presents very small resistance to rotation, resists either axial thrust or shearing forces, and permanently flexible. Center of rotation occurs at intersection of reinforcing bars. Messner hinge. I repeat again, because it's a little complicated. Messner hinge. Let me see also on website where it says Messner hinge. Better for further clarification. It's better. The spelling is, I think, it is MESNAG, Messner. So let us see what it says. Messner hinge. I think I got some information on this. I think it's something here. It's like an arch. Yes, it is. Messner hinge at EMP test for high datum viaduct. Let me see what is that. Actually, it's good one. I think it's good one. I'll just show you if I can. You can say print it. Maybe I am not able to print it. Probably. Copy image address. Create QP code. I want to print it. That's my plan. To print that. How I have to print this? I'm not able to print it. There's a problem here. It's image. copy image, copy image, I'm not able to solve it problem, copy image, how can I copy image like this? No, it's not that way. Why it's not working? I don't know. Let me see something else. Most of it concrete hinge, alright. Mass nature hinge, international here. Let us see something else. If I can find some sketch here. Mass nature hinge. Mass nature hinge, a permanent semi-articulation of flexible joint in a reinforced concrete arch wherein angles of rotation of hinge are very small by crossing steel reinforcing bars within opening between concrete structural segments. Same definition is here. So I can't do anything with this. I think here is some sketch, but point is same. I'm not able to. You can't see image because I'm working on PDF, and let me see if I can messenger hinge. Let me see if I can just save it. Messenger hinge, and you can say messenger hinge. It's here, and then can I print it? I think I can print it now. So I can print it. Let me see. It will come to you. I think it will work. Getting ready to print. Getting ready to print. Maybe I get it. I think it is. Yes, it is. Okay, we got it. So it is that one. I close my file here. So let me close this file. Go away from here. Why don't you go picture? Go away from here. It's not going. There's some problem here, I think. Well, this is your. You can see here is which size passenger hinge here, as I said. This is picture of that passenger hinge. I think picture is very clear. It's very clear as definition says. As definition states, it's clear. And it says that, as I said, mass nature hinge, a permanent semi-articulation or flexible joint in a reinforced concrete arch wherein angle of rotation at hinge are very small. By crossing steel reinforcing bars within opening between concrete structural segments, resultant articulation pressures, very small resistance to rotation, resists either axial thrust or shearing forces, and is permanently flexible. Center of rotation occurs at intersection of reinforcing bars, and that is what it says, though it's not. Let's say exactly what it is. You can say angle of rotation here, very small. So this is, you can say, mass nature art hinge, and this is mass nature hinge. So this is what I try to show you now. So there we can fulfill this requirement, and I can just close it now. No need of this one, and we have done this, so that's okay, fine. We have saved this file. I can save this as it's gone to physical store. That's okay, fine. we can say full page messenger art, we can say it's okay. Messenger, okay. Hinge, messenger hinge. Alright, so save it, خلاص. So we close it now. Alright. So nonsense, why these people disturb for nothing, that's calling me. Fuck off, you guy. I don't care for such people. Alright, so message is gone and meta call in. Meta call in is a natural pozzolana. Meta call in, I think it's a very important one also. Kaolin, as we studied in clay. What is kaolin? A natural pozzolana, you can say. A natural pozzolana produced by heating kaolin containing clays. Kaolin clays, if we heat up, we get some pozzolana, that is metakaolin. A natural pozzolana produced by heating kaolin containing clays. Microconcrete is a mixture of Portland cement, water and suitably graded sand for simulating concrete in small scale structural models. Microconcrete, self-leveling it is, and it is, you can say, repair material actually. I have used it, but it says mixture of Portland cement, water and suitably graded sand for simulating concrete in small scale structural model. It's actually coarse powder, you can say. It's a kind of ground stone chips mixed with sand and cement along with water, of course. You get this concrete in small bags, and we can just add water and we can use this concrete immediately after mixing. So this is microconcrete. And what's microcracking? Microcracking is formation of numerous microscopic cracks. Formation of numerous microscopic cracks approximately 0.1 mm, 1/10 of mm or less in width within concrete. Now, you know, 1/10 of mm is very difficult to see with help of microscope. You may see that, or maybe with naked eyes if your eyesight is excellent. And micro cracks, it is, when we say micro cracking, so same thing applies to micro crack. Small, numerous cracks that develop in hardened concrete. Microfiber, we may say that it is a fiber, microfiber, fiber with an equivalent diameter, fibrant with an equivalent diameter less than 0.012 inch or 0.3 mm. 0.3 mm microfiber. You can say why 0.3 mm means approximately one third of mm for use in concrete. Microscopic, that is discernible only with aid of microscope, otherwise you can't see it. And microsilica, silica fume, we know. Microstopping is bonded decorative overlay, usually 3 to 5 mm in thickness. Middle strip in two-way slab framing, slab portion that occupies middle half of span, between columns. Mill scale is partially adherent layers of oxidation, partially adherent layers of oxidation product, or you can say heavy oxides developed on metallic surfaces during either hot fabrication or heat treatment of metals, as on hot rolled steel reinforcing bars. A partially adherent layers of oxidation products, heavy oxides developed on metallic surfaces during either hot fabrication or hot or heat treatment of metals, as on hot rolled steel reinforcing bars. Mineral aggregate consisting essentially of inorganic non-metallic rock materials, aggregate consisting essentially of inorganic non-metallic rock materials, either natural or crushed and graded. Its mineral aggregate, inorganic non-metallic rock materials. Mineral filler, a finely divided mineral product, at least 65% of which passes 75 micron. Number 200 sieve, that is mineral filler or silt. Temperature, minimum film forming temperature. Minimum film forming temperature, video and audio 0. As usual, bad supply of signals. Minimum film forming temperature. Minimum temperature at which a synthetic latex, we discussed latex yesterday, dispersion of polymers in water. So, minimum temperature at which a synthetic latex or emulsion shall coalesce when laid on substrata as a thin film. This is minimum film forming temperature, temperature at which synthetic latex or emulsion coalesce when laid on a substrata as thin film. Mixed design. We know proportion of designs, and then mixer, which is a machine used for blending constituents of concrete. Everybody knows that is a physical item as well. Or grout. We have to blend constituents of concrete or constituents of grout, or mortar, cement paste, or other mixture. Mixer efficiency. Mixer efficiency, adequacy of a mixer. Adequacy of a mixer. We can say adequacy of a mixer in rendering a homogeneous product within a stated period. Adequacy of a mixer in rendering a homogeneous product within a stated period. Mixing cycle, time taken for a complete cycle in a batch mixer, that is, time elapsing between successive repetitions of same operation. For example, successive discharges of mixer. Mixing plant means batching plant, and mixing speed. Mixing speed is, what is that? Rotation rate, rotation rate, mixing speed is rotation rate of a mixer drum, rotation rate of a mixer drum of paddles, rotation rate of a mixer drum or paddle in an open top pan, or trough mixer when mixing a batch, open top pan or a trough mixture when mixing a batch, expressed in revolutions per minute RPM or in peripheral feet per minute, meters per minute. Period during which constituents of a batch of concrete are mixed by a mixer. For a stationary mixer, time is given in minutes. Total minutes at a specified mixing speed are expressed in terms of total revolutions at a specified mixing speed. Mixing water. Water in freshly mixed cementitious mixture, exclusive of whatever previously absorbed by aggregate. Water in freshly mixed cementitious mixture, exclusive of whatever previously absorbed by aggregate, also called batch water or batched water. Mixture, assembled, blended, commingled ingredients. Assembled, concrete or like, or proportions for their assembly. Mixture proportions, proportions of ingredients that make most economical use of available materials. Let us see what's that. Mobile placer, a small belt conveyor. A small belt conveyor mounted on wheels or a truck that can be readily moved to job site for conveying concrete from concrete truck to form or slab. Mobile placer, a small belt conveyor mounted on wheels or on truck that can be readily moved to job site for conveying concrete from concrete truck to form or slab. Mobility, ability of fresh concrete, ability of fresh concrete or mortar to flow. Moderate exposure condition. An environment normally in temperature climate range, climate regions, that's moderate exposure condition. An environment normally in temperature climate region in which concrete only occasionally be exposed to moisture and not be saturated before pressing, while no de-icing agents or other aggressive chemicals are used. Moderate exposure condition. An environment normally temperature climate range agents, in which concrete only occasionally is exposed to moisture and shall not be saturated before fishing, and where to de-icing agents or other aggressive chemicals are used. Moderate sulfate resistant cement. Moderate sulfate resistant cement. A Portland cement for use when either moderate sulfate resistance, moderate sulfate resistance, moderate heat of hydration. It's obsolete now actually, but even then we have to understand. A Portland cement for use when either moderate heat of hydration, moderate sulfate resistance, or moderate or both desired now. Okay, leave it. I have to see then modified cube, portion of a rectangular beam of hardened concrete, previously broken in flexure, portion of rectangular beam of hardened concrete previously broken in flexure, used in determining compressive strength of concrete. Modified Portland cement. This is also obsolete. Portland cement having moderate heat of hydration. This term was replaced by STM C150M type 2 cement. That is type 2 cement. Alright, then there is now modified Portland. Ratio of modulus of elasticity of steel, ratio of modulus of elasticity of steel to that of concrete, or ES over EC, modulus of elasticity of steel to that of modulus of elasticity of concrete, usually denoted by symbol eta n. Modulus of resilience or modulus of rupture, you can say modulus of rupture. Flexural stress, I'm talking of modulus of rupture, not resilience. Ratio of load per unit of soil, to corresponding settlement of soil, ratio of load per unit area of soil to corresponding settlement of soil, typically evaluated in place for STM D1196 or D196M, also called coefficient of subgrade reaction. Ratio of load per unit area soil to corresponding settlement of soil. You can say if it is let's say 10 tons per square meter, and 10 ton divided by settlement, you can say get that is modulus of subtraction. Mohor's scale of hardness of minerals ranging from 1 through 10. I have here moist cabinet. Moist, you know what is moist. Moist cabinet, an upright and compartmented case. An upright and compartmented case having doors and shelves of moderate dimensions for storing and curing small test specimen of cement paste, mortar and concrete in an atmosphere of 23 degrees Celsius. Approximately 23 degrees Celsius. So this is Celsius and at least 95% relative humidity. So this is moist cabinet. The temperature is maintained at 23 degrees Celsius, and we are 95% relative humidity access. Moist room with controlled temperature and relative humidity for purpose of curing and storing cementitious test specimen. Moisture barrier, vapor barrier, moisture content of aggregate. This is ratio expressed as percentage of mass of water in given quantity of aggregate. Mass of water in given quantity of aggregate to dry mass of quantity of aggregate. So moisture content of aggregate is ratio expressed as percentage of mass of water in given quantity of aggregate to dry mass of that quantity of aggregate. Percentage of mass of water to dry mass of device containing a cavity into which neat cement, mortar or concrete test specimen are cast, a form used in fabrication of precast mortar of concrete, which can say moisture free. You have seen that. We talk mold now, device containing cavity into which neat cement, mortar or Concrete test specimen ARCA has lost all slump and bleed water. Monolithic topping, flatwork, a higher quantity of more serviceable topping course placed promptly after base course has lost all slump and bleed water. Again I say higher quality, more serviceable topping course placed promptly after base course has lost all slump and bleed water. Monomolecular. Monomolecular. Composed of single molecules film over breathing water at surface of freshly placed concrete or mortar as a means of reducing rate of evaporation. So we can say evaporation composed of single molecules, specifically films that are one molecule thick and then also thickness equal to one molecule. And example is chemical compounds develop a monomolecular film or bleeding water at supply of freshly placed concrete or mortar as a means of reducing rate of evaporation. Montmorillonite. Montmorillonite, very important term. Swelling clay mineral, a swelling clay mineral of smectite group, main constituent of bentonite. Main constituent of bentonite. Montmorillonite. Mortar, as far as Montmorillonite concerned, we have to be very careful about this because it's very dangerous. It swells and shrinks. Very dangerous clay it is, and it can cause problems if it's used for foundations. So we have to be very careful about this in construction engineering. Mortar, mixture of cement paste and fine aggregate in fresh concrete, material occupying interstices among particles of coarse aggregate. In masonry construction, joint mortar may contain masonry cement or may contain hydraulic cement with lime and possibly other admixtures to afford greater plasticity and workability than are attainable with standard Portland cement. Mortar board and we can say mosaic in inlaid exposed surface designs of aggregate or other materials, inlaid exposed surface design of aggregate or blotchiness across a surface, uneven color shading or blotchiness across surface or discoloration. Moving forms, very bad signal stays at this current time. I don't think it will move further. It comes well, you can say devices with a minimum amount of dismantling between successive users. Large prefabricated units of formwork incorporating supports and designed to be moved horizontally on rollers or similar devices with a minimum amount of dismantling between successive uses. Mud mat, a layer of concrete beneath a structural concrete. A layer of concrete beneath a structural concrete floor. A layer of concrete beneath a structural concrete floor or floating or footing over soft. A layer of concrete beneath a structural concrete floor or footing over soft. Footing over soft, very wet soil, mud mat. Mud jacking, okay. Multi-element pressure testing, multiple presses. So we have multi-element pre-stressing accomplished by stressing an assembly of several individual structural elements as a means of producing an integrated structural members. Bill Naylor. Naylor. What percentage of it is? Let me see. 59%. Okay. Multi-element processing or nailer. Nailer is a strip of wood. Where is that? Sorry. Nailer is a strip of wood or other fitting. Strip of wood or other fitting attached to a set in concrete. Attached to or set in concrete or attached to steel to facilitate making nailed connections. Natural cement, a hydraulic cement, gone now, still there. Natural cement, a hydraulic cement produced by calcining an argillaceous limestone. Natural cement, hydraulic one, produced by calcining an argillaceous limestone at its forms we have gone through, natural cement we have gone through, natural pigment. Natural pigment we can say class of pigments that are produced. Natural cement I think we've gone through it. Yes, let me go again. Hydraulic cement produced by calcining and argillaceous limestone to at a temperature below sintering point, and then grinding to fine powder. Natural pigment, class of pigments that are produced by physical processing of materials mined directly from earth, also called natural or mineral pigments or colors. Class of pigments are produced by physical process of materials mined directly from earth. Natural porcelain, raw or calcined natural materials, raw or calcined natural materials. Sorry. Natural sand resulting from natural disintegration and abrasion of rock. You can see them sand, this fine aggregate or sand, this natural sand resulting from natural disintegration and abrasion of rock. Neat cement grout, a fluid mixture neat cement grout is a fluid mixture of hydraulic cement and water with or without other ingredients. Neat cement paste, a mixture of hydraulic cement and water. Neat plaster, not net plaster, neat cement paste and neat plaster. Neat cement paste is, before also we said that it's a grout, now it's just neat cement, as we said. Neat cement grout, neat cement paste, neat plaster without sand. Neat it is, neat cement grout, neat cement paste, water, and neat plaster without sand. Neat plaster. Negative moment, a condition of flexure in which top fibers of a horizontally placed member or external fibers of a vertically placed exterior member are subject to tensile stresses. A condition of flexure in which top fibers of horizontally placed members or external fibers of a vertically placed exterior member are subject to tensile stresses. Negative reinforcement, steel reinforcement for negative moment, and cross-sectional area of masonry, cross-sectional area of a section of masonry minus area of cavities. Inlet mixing water. It is mixing water, neutral axis, in plane of a structural member, subject to bending, where longitudinal stress is 0. Neutral axis where longitudinal stress is 0, so line on plane of structure is subject to bending where longitudinal stress is 0, that's called neutral axis. Neutral refractory, that's resistant to chemical attack. refractory that is resistant to chemical attack by either acidic or basic substances. So neutral axis and neutral refractory positives. Neutral axis says line of plane structural beam subject to bending. Okay, so we can say now where we have gone through nuclear refractory, a refractory that's resistant to chemical attack. Neutral refractory is, we may say, refractory that is resistant to chemical attack by either acidic or basic substances. No fines concrete, a concrete mixture containing little or no fine aggregate. Nodal germ, volume of concrete around a hole, volume of concrete around a node that is assumed to transfer strut and line of here. You can say neutral refractory that's resistant to chemical attack by either acidic or basic substances. No fines concrete mixture containing little or no fine aggregate. Nodal germ, volume of concrete around a node that is assumed to transfer strut and tie forces through node. Node point of strut and tie model where axis of struts, ties and concentrated forces acting on joint interest. Normal flexible strength, normal flexural strength, normal flexural strength of a member, flexural strength of a member, obvious, it is 50%. Flexural strength of a member or cross section calculated in accordance with provisions and assumptions of strength design model before application. In specifications for and in the smallest sieve opening through which entire amount of aggregate is permitted to pass, nominal maximum size of aggregate in specifications for and in descriptions of aggregate, smallest sieve opening through which entire amount of aggregate is permitted to pass, nominal strength, nominal shear strength, shear strength of a member or cross section calculated in accordance with provisions of provisions and assumptions of strength design method strength design. Okay, this will place. Let me check. Some problem with signals again. Again, signal is a problem here. Design method of glass surface load to be multiplied by factors. Compared to strength. Strength also seen calculate in accordance with provisions and assumptions of strength design method before application of any strength reduction factor. Nominal strength reduction factor, factor by which nominal strength is multiplied to obtain design strength. Nominal strength reduction factor, factor by which nominal strength is multiplied to obtain design strength. Nano non-agitating units, not nano, non-agitating units. Non-agitating unit. A truck mounted container for transporting sand mixed concrete, not equipped to provide agitation during delivery. Non-agitating unit. Non-air entrained concrete. Non-air entrained concrete. Concrete in which neither air conditioner, concrete which neither an air entraining admixture nor air entraining cement has been used. That is non-air entrained concrete. Non-bearing wall. A wall that supports no vertical load other than its own weight and no in-plan shear loads. Non-combustible. Material that neither ignites nor supports combustion or air exposure. You can say non-bearing wall, non-combustible. A material that neither ignites nor supports combustion in air when exposed to fire. Material that neither ignites nor supports combustion in air when exposed to fire. Non-evaporable water. Water that's chemically combined during cement hydration and it cannot be evaporated. Non-ferrous, relating to metals other than iron, not containing or including iron. Non-pre-stress reinforced. Reinforcing steel not subject to either pre-tensioning or post-tensioning. Non-recoverable creep. Residual or non-residual deformation. Non-recoverable creep. This is resistance residual or non of sustained load. Non-tilting mixture. A horizontal rotating drum mixer that charges, mixes and discharges without tilting. Non-tilting mixer, horizontal rotating drum mixer that charges, mixes has been evaporated. Portion of material that after portion material that remains after volatile matter has been evaporated under specified ambient or accelerated conditions. Normal cement. General purpose Portland cement referred to type 1 ASTM type 1. Normal consistency. Normal consistency. Consistency of cement paste satisfying appropriate limits defined in standard test. Consistency of cement paste satisfying appropriate limits defined in standard test method in normal Portland cement assessment in normal stress. Normal stress component that is perpendicular to a plane on which force is applied. Stress component that is perpendicular to plane on which force is applied. Designated tensile if force is directed away from plane. Stress component that's perpendicular to the plane on which force is applied. Designated tensile if force is directed away from plane, and compressive if force is directed towards plane. Normal weight aggregate. Normal weight aggregate. Let me be sure about this 40%. Normal weight aggregate that's neither heavyweight nor lightweight. Normal weight concrete having a density of approximately 2400 kg per meter cube, made with normal density aggregate. No slump concrete. We have here, you can say, we have seen nozzle of concrete, nozzle, yes, nozzle. But I forgot otherwise. A nozzle line, a nozzle, a metal or rubber tip, a metal or rubber tip attached to discharge end of a heavy thick walled rubber hose from which a continuous stream of concrete shotgun is ejected at high velocity. Metal or rubber tip attached to discharge end of a heavy thick walled rubber hose from which continuous stream of shotcrete is ejected at a high velocity. Nozzle liner, a replaceable rubber lining fitting into nozzle tip to prevent abrasion of intersurface of nozzle and nozzle velocity, with which shotcrete is ejected from nozzle. Nozzle velocity nozzle controls. Now let me first do my favor first of all, otherwise battery will go off. I'll put it on. This here is very cold really. I can't sit comfortably today. First time it happened in many months. It's causing trouble. Really this troublesome. I can say this troublesome. This troublesome really. That really troublesome. This is very cold. And I can say nozzle, I have explained. Metal rubber tip attached, it is a metal or rubber tip attached to the discharge end of a heavy thick walled rubber hose from which a continuous stream of shotcrete is ejected at high velocity. Nozzle liner is a replaceable rubber nozzle liner is a replaceable rubber lining fitted into nozzle tip to prevent abrasion of interior surface of nozzle. Nozzle velocity, rate at which shotcrete is ejected from nozzle, and nozzle person, a craftsperson on shotcrete crew who manipulates nozzle, controls consistency with dry process, and controls final deposition of material. So this is nozzle person or nozzle man, craftsperson, crafter on shotcrete crew who manipulates nozzle, controls consistency with dry process, and controls final deposition of material. Obsidian in natural volcanic glass. This is obsidian OPSIDIAN in natural volcanic glass of relatively low water content, usually of rhyolite composition. Natural volcanic glass of relatively low water content, usually of rhyolite composition. Offset An abrupt change in alignment or dimension. An abrupt change in alignment or dimension. An abrupt change in an abrupt change in alignment or dimension, either horizontally or vertically. A horizontal ledge occurring along a change in wall thickness of wall above. So an abrupt change in alignment or dimension, either horizontally or vertically, a horizontal ledge occurring along change in wall thickness of wall above. Offset band. Offset band, an intentional distortion from normal straightness of steel reinforcing bar. An intentional distortion from normal straightness of steel reinforcing bar to move center line of a segment of bar to a position parallel to original position of center line. I don't know, international distortion, intentional distortion from normal straightness of steel reinforcing bar to move center line of segment of bar to a position parallel to original position of center line, or a mechanical operation commonly applied to vertical bars that reinforce concrete columns. Intentional distortion from a normal straightness of steel bar to move center line of segment of bar to a position parallel to original position of center line. Mechanical operation commonly applied to vertical bars that reinforce concrete column is called offset. Okay. Then we can say offset yield strength. Offset yield strength. It is stress at which strain exceeds by specified amount. Stress at which strain exceeds by a specified amount. An extension of initially proportional part of stress strain curve. An extension of initially proportional part of stress strain curve. Oil well cement. Hydraulic cement. Hydraulic cement suitable for use under high pressure and temperature in sealing water and gas pockets, and setting casing during drilling and repairs of wells, and often contains retarders to meet requirements of use. Oil well cement. Hydraulic cement suitable for use under high pressure and temperature in sealing water and gas pockets. Hydraulic cement that is suitable for use under high pressure and high temperature in sealing water and gas pockets and setting casing during drilling and repair of wells, and often contains retarders to meet requirements of use. A one-way system, arrangement of steel reinforcement within a slab that presumably bends in only one direction. Opal, 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 a mineral composed of amorphous hydrosilica, a mineral composed of amorphous hydrosilica SiO2 and H2O. Opaline chat composed entirely on mainly of opal. So what we say, right? This one, amorphous. Aggregate research, this was their opile. What was there? I actually was aggregate. Chat composed entirely of mineral opal, like mineral composed of amorphous hydrosilica. Okay, open graded aggregate where voids between particles are relatively large when compacted. Open graded aggregate where voids between particles are relatively large when compacted. Open top mixer, a truck mounted mixer consisting of a trough or a segment of a cylindrical mixing compartment within which paddles or blades rotate about horizontal axis of trough, where say truck mounted mixer consisting of trough or a segment of a cylindrical mixing compartment within which paddles or plates rotate about horizontal axis of a trough. Ordinary Portland cement, term used in the United Kingdom and elsewhere to designate equivalent to type 1 cement, that is ASTM C150, C150M, type 1 cement. That's ordinary Portland cement. Orthotropic plate consisting of beams and slab. Orthotropic plate consisting of beams and slab acting together with different flexural rigidities in longitudinal and transverse direction as in a complete beam bridge. This term is a contraction of terms orthogonal anisotropic. Orthogonal anisotropic, as in phrase orthogonal anisotropic plate. Hypothetical plate, that is orthotropic. Hypothetical plate consisting of beams and slab acting together with different flexural rigidities in longitudinal and transverse directions as in composite beam bridge. This term is contraction of the term orthogonal anisotropic. In contraction of this term as in phrase orthogonal anisotropic plate. Orthotropic. Onus representative. Onus representative, person or entity authorized to act on one's behalf. Oven dry condition. Oven dry condition resulting from having been dried. Condition resulting from having been dried to a essentially constant mass in an oven at a temperature that has been fixed. Condition resulting resulting from having been dried to essentially constant mass in an oven at a temperature that has been fixed. Oven dry condition resulting from having been dried to essentially constant mass in an oven at a temperature that has been fixed. Oven dry specific gravity ratio, that is ratio of mass of volume of material, including permeable and impermeable pores in material, but not including voids between particles of materials. At a stated temperature to mass of an equal volume of distilled water. At a stated temperature, it may be called bulk specific gravity, oven dry specific gravity. Ratio of mass of volume of a material, including permeable and impermeable pores in material, but not including voids between particles of materials. Okay. At a stated temperature to mass of an equal volume of distilled water at a stated temperature. A layer of concrete or mortar, placed on a concrete slab. A layer of concrete or mortar placed on a concrete slab to either restore or improve function of previous surface. A layer of concrete or mortar placed on a concrete slab to either restore or improve function of previous surface. Over sanded is containing more sand than would be necessary to produce adequate workability and a satisfactory condition for finishing. Overspray, shotcrete material deposited away from intended receiving surface. Shotcrete material deposited away from intended receiving surface. Over vibration, excess use of vibrators during placing freshly mixed concrete, causing segregation, stratification and excessive bleeding. Excessive use of vibrators during placement of freshly mixed concrete, causing segregation, causing stratification and causing excessive bleeding. Honor, corporation, association, partnership, individual or public body or authority, or whom a contractor enters into, or with whom a contractor enters into agreement and for whom work is provided. Packaged concrete, mortar or grout. Packaged concrete, mortar or grout. Mixtures of dry ingredients in packages. Mixture of dry ingredients in packages requiring only addition of recommended amount of water to produce concrete, mortar or grout. Mixtures of dry ingredients in packages requiring only addition of recommended amount of water to produce concrete, mortar or grout. Mixture of dry ingredients or dry ingredients in packages requiring only addition of recommended amount of water to produce concrete, mortar or grout. Can generally constitute chemicals are packaged concrete, mortar, grout. Packer, a device inserted into hole in which grout is to be injected, that acts to prevent return of grout around injection. A device inserted into a hole in which grout is to be injected. It acts to prevent return of grout around injection pipe, usually an expandable expandable device actuated mechanically, hydraulically or pneumatically. Packer is a device inserted into hole in which grout is to be injected, that acts to prevent return of grout around injection pipe, usually an expandable device actuated mechanically, hydraulically and pneumatically. Packer head process. Packer head process. Packer head process. Process for producing concrete pipe. Process for producing concrete pipe that uses a rotating device. Process for producing concrete pipe that uses a rotating device that forms interior surface of pipe as concrete is fed into form from above. Packer heads process. Paddle mixer. Open top mixer and pan prefabricated form using, you can say, prefabricated form unit used in concrete concrete joist floor construction. Prefabricated form used in concrete joist floor construction. A container that receives particles passing fine as sieve during sieve analysis of granular material. Pan mixer is vertical shaft mixer, and panel is a section of form sheathing that can be erected and stripped as a unit. A concrete element that is relatively thin with respect to other dimensions and is bordered by joints or edges. Panel, a region of a suspended slab system, bounded by columns, beams and walls, center lines. So panel is a region of a suspended slab system bound by column, beam or wall center lines. Panel strip. Sorry, I'm a little gastric. A strip extending, panel strip, a strip extending across length or width of a flat slab for structural design and construction or for architectural purpose. Parapet is a part of wall that extends above roof level or in low wall along top of them. Parge, coat with plaster. Parges, to coat with plaster. To coat with plaster, particularly foundation walls and rough masonry. Parge, what's that? Coats with plaster, particularly foundation walls and rough masonry. Partial pre-stressing, pre-stressing to a stress level such that under design loads tensile stresses exist in pre-compressed tensile zone of pre-stress member. Partial pre-stressing, pre-stressing to a stress level such that under design loads tensile stresses exist in pre-compressed tensile zone of pre-stress member. Particle shape, form of a particle, what is this as? Then particle size distributions grading, and parting agent, you have to see release agent and pass layer of shotcrete placed in one moment over area of operation. Layer of shotcrete placed in one moment over area of operation. It's called one pass, and also needs cement paste. It is paste and paste content, amount of cement paste in concrete, mortar or like, expressed as volume, percentage of entire mix. Then there's paste volume, paste content, pattern cracking, and we have also pavement, concrete pavement, a layer of concrete on such areas as roads, sidewalks, canals, playgrounds, and those used for storage or parking. Then we have paving train, an assembly of equipment designed to place and finish a concrete pavement. P. Gravel. Screened gravel. Screened gravel. Screened gravel, most particles of which pass 9.5 mm. P. Gravel means particles of which screened gravel, particles of which pass through 9.0 mm sieve and are retained on 4.75 mm P gravel. 9.5 to 4.7 is range, not below 4.755. Peak load, highest load sustained by specimen or structural element during a test, and strength computed using peak load. That's called peak load strength. Pedestal, compression member with a ratio of height to least lateral dimension. Pedestal is compression member with a ratio of height to least lateral dimension less than or equal to 3. Peeling, a process in which thin flakes of mortar are broken away from a concrete surface. Such as by deterioration or by adherence of surface mortar to form as forms are removed. Peeling is a process in which thin flakes of mortar are broken away from a concrete surface, such as by deterioration or by adherence of surface mortar to forms as forms are removed. Pencil rod, plain metal rod of approximately 6 mm diameter. Plain metal rod with 6 mm diameter. Penetability. Penetability, a general term related to ease of fluid penetration into concrete, which may occur by permeation, absorption, diffusion, or a combination thereof. Reasons are permeability or permeation, absorption, diffusion, or a combination thereof. Penetration, an opening throughout which pipe, conduit, or other items passes through a wall or floor. Penetration above. Penetration probe. Penetration probe, a device for obtaining an indirect measure. A device for obtaining an indirect measure of concrete compressive strength. A device for obtaining an indirect measure of concrete compressive strength by measuring resistance of concrete to penetration. A device for obtaining an indirect measure of concrete compressive strength by measuring resistance of concrete to penetration. A device for obtaining an indirect measure of concrete compressive strength by measuring resistance of concrete to penetration, customarily determined by distance that steel pin is driven into concrete from a special gun by a precisely measured explosive charge. Customarily determined by distance that a steel pin is driven into concrete form a special gun by a precisely measured explosive discharge. Penetration resistance of fresh mortar, or cement paste to penetration by a plunger or needle under standard conditions used to determine time of setting. Resistance of hardened concrete to penetration by a steel rod driven into surface by a high power driver. Resistance of hardened concrete to penetration by a steel rod driven into surface by a high power driver. And then percent fine, amount expressed as a percentage of material in aggregate finer than given sieve, usually 75 micron. Amount of expressed as percentage of material in aggregate finer than given sieve, usually 75 micron. Amount of fine aggregate in concrete mixture expressed as a percentage of solid volume of total amount of aggregate. I will go for 5 minutes. Be back. Meanwhile, you can read this. I'll be back in 5 minutes only. Penetration probe we talked of. Penetration probe, and now penetration resistance we talked of. Then we talked of person fines now. Person fine, and that is, we said that person fine amount expressed as persons of material and aggregate fine of then given sieve size, usually 75 micron, and amount of fine aggregate in concrete mixture expressed percentage by absolute volume of total amount of aggregate. Amount of fine aggregate in concrete mixture expressed percent by absolute volume of fine, by volume of fine and absolute volume of total aggregate. Persons of reinforcement, ratio of cross-sectional area of reinforcement steel to effective cross-sectional area of member expressed as percentage. Performance-based specification, specification which requirements are stated in terms of required results. Specification which requirements are stated in terms of required results with criteria for verifying compliance rather than specific composition, design or procedure. Periclase, PERICLASE, a crystalline mineral, magnesia, MgO, equivalent of which may be present in Portland cement clinker, Portland cement, and other materials such as open earth slags and certain basic refractories. Periclase, a crystalline mineral, magnesia, MgO, equivalent of which may be present in Portland cement clinker, Portland cement, and other materials such as open earth slags or certain basic refractories. Perlite, volcanic glass having a perlitic structure, usually having high water content than obsidian. We talked about obsidian, and then expanded by heating, used as an insulating material and has a lightweight aggregate in concrete, mortars and plasters. Perlite having higher water contents than obsidian, and when expanded by heating, used as an insulating material and is a lightweight aggregate in concretes, mortars and plasters. Permanent setting, inelastic elongation or shortening. Concrete containing little, if whatever, fine aggregate that results in sufficient voids to allow air and water. Concrete containing little, fine aggregate that results in sufficient voids to allow air and water to pass easily from surface to underlying layers. Pervious concrete containing a little fine aggregate that results in sufficient voids to allow air and water to pass easily from surface to underlying layers. Pervious pavement comprising material with sufficient continuous voids to allow water to pass from surface to underlying layers. Pervious pavement comprising material with sufficient continuous voids to allow water to pass from surface to underlying layers. Petrography, branch of petrology, dealing with description and systematic classifications of rocks. Petrology, dealing with description and systematic classification of rocks, aside from their geologic relations, mainly laboratory methods. Largely chemical and microscopical, also loosely petrology or lithology. Laboratory study of concrete and mortar samples to determine various characteristics, including but not limited to water cement ratio paste, aggregate bond, and air. Can say treating of their origin, structure, and composition from aspects and all relations. Phenolic resin, class of synthetic oil soluble resin, plastics, you can say. Synthetic oil soluble resin plastics produced as condensation, products of phenol, substituted phenol, and formaldehyde, or some similar aldehyde that may be used in paints for concrete. 5-factor nominal strength reduction factor and flow factor, distance used as an index of extent to which hardened cement paste is protected from effects of freezing. A distance used as an index of extent to which hardened cement paste is protected from effects of freezing. So selected that only a small portion of cement paste, usually 10%, lies farther than distance from perimeter of nearest air voids. Page 49, and we'll start page 50 next time. Next time we'll see what happens. So next time what happens, we have to study this thoroughly, very clearly. That's our requirement. We cannot simply run away like this. We have to understand each point very clearly, because this is mature study we are talking. We are not talking ordinary study. This is study from various sources. Actually, we can say that it's a revisit of study. It's not simple study. Revisit of everything. That's really very interesting if you consider that way. We have gone through many pages. We have gone through today's, you can say, about these pages of, we say, definitions, just to improve our standards, just to know more and more. And even if you know, we have to refresh, have to revisit what we studied, because initial study of theory or of terminology is not very clear always. Initial study is always very elementary, but sometimes after we have done experiments or we have experienced, we have to revisit. It tells us what actually we studied at time. Maybe a lot of that we could not understand. We understood only from points of view of examinations and not from real work viewpoint. Let us emphasize the coordination. In coordination, we have to use all these terminologies. Nothing should look to us that, oh, what is this? I can't understand that. No problem if I can't understand that. I have to understand that. Learn more and more. Well, I think it's much more than we study at university time, because many times you go back to your books, you'll find you grasp better. You will think, how could not I understand the time when I studied as a student? Can't. It happens. Additional information, practical experience, really viewing materials, using them, changes your knowledge. You then again compare, you'll find that you have gone farther and farther, farther and farther, and that's what's required. You may call it sometime you have gone to better level, you have improved your knowledge, that knowledge gives you better experience, gives you better understanding of material, because in engineering always you have to learn. You cannot say this is my time and I've learned everything. That stage never comes. You have to learn more and more and more, and as much as possible, and then you have to think, I learned nothing, You have gone through many times of your degree course and in years' time, and you say, I know very little about engineering, and that is where expertise lies in. You are so expert that you don't know you are learning anything. Oh, this is, what is this? I don't know anything about this. And when you compare to your books, you say, oh, this is very elementary study. Experience is a teacher, remember. And experience, this talk, this revision, these terms we are learning